Happy Thursday, Sainers. Welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. Welcome to a video about 2025, about the players that are going to jump out of the blocks. They're going to have a breakout season. Who you think is going to be primed to just go that next level in 2025. I put a post about this about a week ago on Facebook and Instagram stating which Saint are you tipping to have a big 2025 season. And I thought, let's go through some of the comments. Let's see what you, as the true Sainers that I know, who you think for you is going to jump out. So, Dylan reckons Hugo Garcia. He's already decent, and with the players we've got now, he can learn so much more. Keen to see how he goes. Hugo Garcia, that's a good one. He's one of my picks. Lee says, I'm going to say Cooper Sharman. I reckon he has a great future ahead of him. Having said that, I hope he has a few mates that do too. Mateus, hopefully, from Julie. Classy and talented. He will lead the way soon. I also hope Machito gets back to his top-class ways. 2 new recruits like Darcy Wilson, please. Also, my voice is maybe coming across a little bit croaky. I'm just a little bit under the weather, but nonetheless, we will keep going. Darcy Wilson's a popular one. Max King. Now, Max King is probably the big one. I mean, just based on his contract extension, that goes without saying that he needs to have that type of season. He needs to have when we say breakout season, what would that mean for Max King? Would that mean 60 goals? Is that breakout? 50 again on return from injury? I don't know. Put it in the comments. What's a breakout season for Max King? Is it challenging for the Coleman? Is that the standard we need to go for? Steve says Sean Maker, Wilson, Mateus, and Wanganeen-Milera. Wanganeen-Milera is one for me. Again, like you talk about the season that he had this season, and the fact that he was even remotely talked about in that All-Australian discussion is a credit to just how good he is. And you just imagine that he's just going to get better and better. So I don't necessarily think Naz needs a breakout season. I think he's broken out. I think everyone knows he is a gun, and he's going to be a gun for a long time in that halfback position. If he can move to maybe more of an aggressive midfield position, who knows? Maybe that just takes him to that next level. But I think that's just going to happen organically. I don't think he's going to go from 0 to 100. He's just gradually just going that extra 10, 20, 30% every season. And it's just going to be scary to think in 5 years' time where he's going to be. Dave says Filippo, Henry, Wilson, and Hunter Clark. Henry's a really good one. I've put him in the thumbnail for a reason. Because when he played this season, he was so lively and he offered us something so different to what we already had. It's just a real disappointment that anytime he got going, he'd have a setback. You know, by early in the season, we all know, setback, halfway through the season, setback, and then we basically say, look, we're going to wrap him in cotton wool, and he's done for the season. You're like, okay. But if you can have a big season, you know, we only saw a little bit of him this season. We didn't see enough, but what we saw was a pretty silky, classy player that has a lot of X factor, a lot of speed, and knows where the goals are. And we don't have enough players like that. So that's why we got him to the club from Fremantle. And if he can come back fully fit and have a uninterrupted season, I think that's going to bode really well for us as a team. Wilson again, Max King, he's due. Machito Owens needs to improve on last season, so hopefully he can. Cooper Sharman, Liam Henry. There's some very common names here. I'm trying to think of one that... Let's try and find one that maybe isn't common. Lance Collard, forgotten player who could be elite in time. That's an interesting one. I mean, I do believe he's going to be an elite player in time. It's just, you know, is he going to sneak into that squad next season ahead of Higo and Butler? Or is he maybe one season more? Does he need to go back to Sandy, dominate, and then in 2026, that's when he can really announce himself? Because by that time, you know, you'd imagine... Higo's only going to be, 26 by that point? I don't know about Butler, but you'd imagine by then Collard's probably banging on the door, hopefully, if not sooner. The D-Wagon, that's from Patrick. I imagine that's Darcy Wilson. In no particular order, Peter has just listed the entire team, so that makes sense. You'd hope King, Filippo, Henry, Garcia, Hasty, Tracy's put Hasty in there. It's nice to see that there's just so many youngsters we have now that could well and truly just have a breakout season. Pick 7 and 8, hopefully, from Nick. Fully fit Windhager. That's a good one. We haven't spoken enough about him on the channel recently. That's my own fault. But Windy is going to be, hopefully, fit, raring to go. And similar to Henry, we saw little bits and bobs. Never just gets that clean run at it. There's always an issue. And we always see that he can tag. He can win his own football. He can use it. He's aggressive. He's ferocious. He's got the size about him and speed. And when we drafted him, he was talked up big time. And it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to stay on the park. But if he can, another young player that can just absolutely be a star for us. Max Heath. Someone's put Max Heath in there. I'd love to see him get a debut. Isaac Keeler as well. Angus McLennan. Caminiti. If Caminiti and Cooper Sharman get that forward line with King to themselves for the duration of the season, who knows what's possible with those two. Especially maybe even if Hammer goes back. Like if he plays a full season at centre half back, who knows what type of player he can develop into. It's going to be very interesting. Paddy Dow, Hunter Clark, Paddy Dow. No one's said it, but Jack Steele, he was good this season, but honestly, if he gets more support with Jack Macrae, Sinclair goes through the guts a little bit more, Filippo lifts in the midfield and owns it more, who's to say Jack Steele can't just release the shackles and just get back to that all-Australian Jack Steele, top 5 in the Brownlow Jack Steele we know, and get his body right, because we all know his body wasn't right for the majority of the last 2 seasons. And on the back end of this season, he was much, much better. Not one person has suggested the captain, which is quite surprising. It's a lot of Filippo, Owens, Garcia, and Tony Lockett, apparently, from James. I'll put it to you guys. Put it in the comments. I'm really interested to hear who you think is going to be, who you want to be as the breakout, and then who you really believe is ready to stand out. Yeah, for me, honestly, it's King. It's King and Filippo, and going into 2024 is probably the same, to be honest. I still back those two as sort of the two, with just an enormous ceiling. I think Darcy Wilson is just going to keep growing as a player, and I don't necessarily think he's going to dominate, but I think he's just going to be in every game, and he's going to be a very, very good player for us. And you can say the same for Naz. I think Naz 2025, to be honest, should be the year that he could be pushing for All-Australian. He's been so high up in the BNF the last couple of years. He's been talked about as All-Australian fancy, even just the squad. But I think next year, if he doesn't make the team, at least a squad. And I think that just, would just be super exciting for us. And then obviously the draftees that we get in, if whoever gets a shout and gets consistent football, love to see how they go. So I like that it's not an obvious one. I feel like in these videos a couple of years ago, it was 1 or 2 players, but you can honestly name 10, 15 players that you could think, if they get a run at it, they could be something, And I think that's just a testament to our drafting, our recruiting. And we didn't really mention him more than once, but Jack Macrae is coming in to prove a point. Why can't he have a breakout season? He hasn't... We forget how good he was 5 years ago. I know he's a little bit older now, but he's going to get consistent run in the midfield. Who's to say he doesn't get 30, 35 every week and become one of the, the more dynamic mids in the comp with Jack Steele and Filippo going through there? No reason why not. So it's great to have that many possibilities. And hopefully in a couple of weeks' time when we hit the draft, we'll be talking about a couple of other players there that will absolutely have the ability to have a couple of breakout seasons as well. So I'll wrap it up there saying it's just a bit of a random one. I just wanted to go through the comments and acknowledge just how many options there are, how excited we should be with the list that we've got. That there's so many players that if they get their bodies right, if they just stay on the park and just keep going in that trajectory that we've seen already, they don't necessarily have to change too much. Just keep doing what they're doing. We're going to see some pretty exciting football next season from these players. So put it in the comments. Let me know who your breakout player is of the season, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, take care, and as always, go you mighty Saints. See you guys.